Ooh, excuse me. I'm going to be doing a lecture today. This is a new lecture. This will be my first time doing this lecture, so this lecture may be a little bit rough, but the point is not to focus on how smooth the presentation goes and how deep I go into particular topics of the presentation, but more or less um, taking in the information given in the presentation, the ideas, the perspectives, and to research, understand, and draw your own conclusions about the information that is being shared here in this presentation today. The name of this presentation is the overlay pattern, law, liberation, and reclassification. So what we're going to cover is 8 modules. Orientation and safety, overlay pattern, reclassification, naming and categorization, constraint, policy and resource, enforcement and disruption, narrative and consciousness access, real-time recognition, and building lawful power capstone. So, liberation isn't usually outlawed. It's reclassified. It's important for us to understand that. Liberation itself is legal. It's when it's reclassified into illegal lanes, which is where the lines become blurred. The overlay pattern mechanism, classification, constraint, enforcement, narrative. What changes in practice? Same action, different label, statute attacks. So these are the things, the tools that they use. So you're doing a legal thing, but they take that same action and give it a different label, and then they attach statutes because statutes are attached to the label that they give it. The process becomes punishment, and the punishment is time, money, stress. Time could be fighting cases and dealing with the losses that are incurred by reputation, smear campaigns, or whatever. And then stress is the stress of dealing with the external forces of power. The narrative shifts from why to procedure. So, not what you're doing, why you're doing, no more of intent. Now it's procedure. What's going on with this? So, common translation examples. So, same behavior, new legal label. So, common translation examples. Organizing becomes conspiracy. Self-defense becomes weapons violations. Movement. They say that you're loitering or you're disorderly conduct or trespassing. Mutual aid. They say that it's unlicensed activity or it's an ordinance violation. So if someone gives you a building to use, they'll try to give it an ordinance violation. If they give you money, they'll try to say that it's unlicensed activity. Political education, subversive versus extremism. So they'll try to either subvert you or they'll try to put you with extremists. The disruptors, they try to say that you're instead of your gatherings being legal gatherings, they become riots or unlawful assemblies. That's why, if you notice, when you see certain groups of people get together, they call it a riot or an unlawful assembly. And when some people get together, they call it a march or organizing, or depending on what group it is, They label it. So that way they can take that same behavior and label it according to the group and according to how they want to enforce the laws on said groups. I hope I'm doing good because this is really my first time off the dome. Um, the key move, the system rarely says liberation is illegal. It says this violation X this violates X statute. So that's where they usually get you on, is on the statutes. You're not even trying to do anything illegal, but it's off statutes that don't usually apply to your situation. They'll make them apply. All right. Next slide. Naming and categorization. What this layer does defines what counts and who counts, creates eligibility and exclusion. Like I was just telling you how certain people, they tell you who's eligible for upholding this law and who's excluded from this law being upheld too. So they decide what evidence is legible, pretending on who it is. So even though this evidence against you will actually be illegal, they will make it legal just because it's you. The laws, basically what they're saying, the laws are fluid. There really are no fixed laws. The laws are truly fluid, but the laws are fixed based on who the person is that the law is being enforced upon. It says it decides what evidence is legible, and it builds the upstream interface for enforcement. The practical exercises. I'll just go to another one. How about that? This one right here. Inventory your local categories: school discipline, housing screening, policing codes, benefits eligibility. Pick 10 items to define credible sources. That would be the practice that you would do. Constraint, policy plus resources. Constraint looks like budgets, permits, zoning, lending, rules, eligibility requirements, infrastructure decisions that compound across domains. So them either approving or not approving those different constituents of policy and resources. So maybe your budget is going to get approved, or your permits are not getting approved, or your zoning is not getting approved. Lending rules. Somehow all your lending is getting pulled. You're not eligible for different things. Your infrastructure decisions like compound across domains, so they are able to discredit those. Why housing matters. Housing equals wealth. Housing equals schools. Housing equals health. Housing equals mobility. Now you wonder why they're displacing so many people and causing for this wide amount of homelessness. There's a design to it, because the more homes people are, the more stable they are. The more stable people are, the more mobility they access to, the more health they have access to, the more education they have access to, and the more wealth. There's literally a ladder. So you wonder why incomes are being outpaced by expenses. It's because it's a way to keep you from climbing up the ladder of what matters. Legal anchors within the U.S. Fair Housing Act of 1968. Housing discrimination prohibited. Enforcement plus remedies vary. Pair. Outside pressure with inside channels. Complaints. Policy. Courts. Courts, the judicial system, is one of the biggest actors in perpetrating these offenses. Obviously, it says certain laws are applied to certain people in certain circumstances, under certain contexts, within certain constraints. Next slide. Enforcement is discretion is the multiplier. Where discretion shows up, Warning versus citations. You know, like that first time they come knock on your door, you get a citation. But your affluent neighbors, they don't even get a knock on the door. You call and call and call on them, they don't even get a knock on the door. Soon as your shit come on, somebody charge stacking, where they keep on giving you these small charges till they can make it big. Petty with a prior. Petty with a prior. Leader targeting. Take off the head, the body dead. Chop off the head, the body dead. Leader targeting. That's leader targeting. That means you take off the person that's in head of this group, this thought, this idea, this whatever it is. And that's why you can't have a leader. You can't have leaders at all, because everything has to be open source. Because if there's only one person with all the information and all the resources, then everybody's stuck waiting on this leader. Selective inspections. Just coming up, giving you inspections, trying to give you citations, trying to ticket you, trying to get you shut down. Time as punishment, jail. Lawful safeguards. Witnesses, record, and records. Timeliness, minutes, receipts. Document everything. Video document. Live stream. If you're a live streamer constantly, that's a document. Live stream those documents and put them into a archiving source like YouTube or something. Create a fingerprint, a footprint. That's so hard for somebody to erase easily. Clear, lawful intent. Have a mission and a conduct policy. Listen, this is one of the most important things I'm going to say. If you're dealing with any type of liberation, consciousness, education, teaching, any types of spirituality practices, any type of community type of practices, you definitely want to make sure you have clear mission and conduct policies. Also, you want to unalign yourself with anybody who has been compromised in any way. And anybody who has been compromised in any way, if they actually really care about evolution of humanity, they would remove themselves from that, whatever is helping with this evolution process. Whatever team it is, whatever the group is, whatever. If you are compromised, remove yourself. Because those compromised people are compromising the evolution of humanity. In any way. It could be your own mama. Compromising is anybody who's been in any legal trouble, who's facing any legal trouble. That's a compromised person. Anybody who has any substances or any substances or controlled substances, have any vices at all, whether it be, discretionary or indiscretionary, even like going to casinos and stuff. You have to have a strategically academic, intellectual body where everybody's meeting up and exchanging ideas openly and evenly, so that everything's exchanged and everybody knows what everybody knows, so they can't target that one leader. And you also have to make sure not to compromise. The other thing of compromise is dealing with anybody who has any foreign ties. You don't want to bring anybody in who has any foreign ties. Foreign family, foreign friends, um, like getting funding from foreigners, or what's the other thing? Sending funding to foreigners. You don't want to deal with that. Not if you're trying to help evolve humanity. You have to purify the unit that's working in this, doing this work, because other than that, they will be neutralized. Next, like I said, transparent roles and decisions. That's what I was just going over. Support network ready, not improvising alone. You do need a support network, and like I just explained, that support network needs to be a group of people who are not compromised in any way, and that you're constantly keeping a check on anybody who's in that group to make sure there's no compromise. The next disruption exists in the record. COINTELPRO, FBI, what matters for this course? Started in 1956, expanded in 1960s to additional domestic groups. Included targeting of the Black Panther Party, among others. Ended in 1971. Program operations ended. How to use this example without paranoia. Treat it as literacy, information, taking you out of ignorance, helping you understand the field that you're in and on. It's giving you a more of a bird's eye view and more clear sight of the potential obstacles that could be ahead of you. How to use this example without paranoia. Treat it as literacy. Disruption tactics can exist. Your response stays lawful. You can keep documentation, transparency, and protected channels. Don't drift into untestable claims. Build evidence. Everything I do, I always pressure test. I always evidence fact check. That's just how I move off principle. Narrative lock-in. What narratives do? They stabilize the label. It's obvious that she's engaging in illegal activity. Look at her with the black shades and the black shirt and the gold chains. It's obvious. It's obvious she's a gangbanger. She's in some street activity. It's obvious. But you would obviously be wrong. Shifts debate from causes to procedure. Pay attention if it's causal or procedural grounds that they're infringing upon you for. Causal or procedural. Procedural will let you know that it's being renamed. Causal would mean that it's actual, factual. Procedural should be something that if you are documented well, you should win in court off procedural. Create stigma and fear. Smear campaigns or, oh, look what happened to her. She got wrapped up talking about that conscious shit. See, I told you it was still illegal. She ain't do nothing wrong. They set her up. They framed her. They'll frame you. They'll set you up. They'll make some shit up. If you don't do nothing, they'll make it up. Create stigma and fear for the people that's behind her. It drains capacity through burnout. Most people can't keep up with the rigorous bullshit or the stress that they keep trying to infringe upon you. The narrative shift. Facts are verifiable. Always know that. Facts are verifiable by multiple avenues. They should be able to counter check in multiple avenues. Somebody can manipulate facts in one line, but they should, if they're actual facts, they should be consistent. That is one way you know that facts are not being true. They are not actual facts because the fact is not verifiable and does not stand up to the test of truth. Inferences. Supported, not proven. Oh, you left your house at 12 o'clock. And they know something else that was going on at 12 o'clock. Yeah, you must have been going to go meet such and such. Who? Huh? But they create these inferences. That doesn't mean it's true. It's an inference. Speculation. Park until evidence. Watch you. Go. Keep clarity without spiraling. Keep that shit clear all the time. Don't spiral out of control. Truth does not have to act all active. But if you're acting through the judicial system, it will, it can potentially trigger your nervous system to react because, as I said, the judicial system helps in this process. The judicial system is not. The judicial system can sometimes be a part of the C.I.A. process of trying to get somebody out here, depending on how big you are, how much of a disruptor you are, how much of a threat you are. I feel like I just had this happen to me recently where I went to go deal with something in a judicial sense, and it was very much some illegal shit going on. And I wanted to go file against the judge, but I didn't have time because I was doing things in my own life. But I think that they rely on the fact of they thinking like, oh, you don't got time to come back and deal with this, so we're going to get away with it. But if I ever was to go get a lawyer and push the issues and look into that shit and look into the procedurals, then I'm pretty sure I can draw more lines to show, to verify this is my speculation, but I will be clarifying my speculation by doing these different steps, which I'm pretty sure if I spent the money on an attorney, I could figure this much out. But once I start doing that, who knows what's going to happen. Real-time signals, early warning indicators, observable, language shift, label change, paperwork, permit shift, new ordinances suddenly cited, targeting shift, leaders signaled out, stacked citations. Like when you got that person out there feeding the homeless and they don't want them to keep feeding the homeless, and they give you that $150 citation every day for feeding the homeless to the point that you can't even afford to feed the homeless because you're going to be homeless feeding the homeless. It's by design. They don't want you feeding the homeless. That's the way they keep you from feeding the homeless. They don't say it's illegal to feed the homeless. They say feeding and serving this such a food at this such a in location. This is a citation. It's a violation. Get a citation. So not causal, but procedural. Narrative shift, coordinated framing. Oh, see, the reason that they never come out of that house is because they in there secretly having somebody get teleported in and talking to them through a teleport, and they don't want us to see them. Administrative pressure, inspections, fines, funding freezes. Sorry, I skipped a page. Stay lawful, a simple spectrum. Protected. Speech and education is protected. You can speak and you can teach. Peaceful assembly. So anytime you have a gathering, make sure that you specifically call that gathering a peaceful assembly. Legal, you have to literally call it a peaceful assembly. The Crystal Guys are peaceful assembly. Petition and public comment. You want to have petitions and public comment on certain things if you're in a larger field for documentation. Voting and registration. You can speak on petitions and public comments. These are things that are protected. To speaking on voting and registration, that's protected. Speaking on lawful mutual aid, that's protected. What's risky? High visibility. Civil disobedience. And that varies depending on how they want to apply it. Disruption of commerce. So there's a lot of ways that they can say that you're disrupting commerce. They can dang near say anything you're doing disrupts commerce. Unpermitted actions. These vary. In surveilled spaces. What's criminalized? What I just said was not criminalized. These are criminalized. Violence and threats. Vandalism and arson. Harassment and doxing. Hacking. Incitement. Building lawful power. Outside pressure. Public education. Peaceful protest. Boycotts. Lawful boycotts. Lawful mutual aid. Inside strategy. Voting and local elections. Public comment in hearings. Records request. FOIA. Administration complaints. And policy advocacy. Policy shifts can change enforcement pathways. Example, in the U.S., disparate impact frameworks can affect how neutral policies with unequal outcomes are challenged. When the rules change, the overlay pattern can intensify through constraint and enforcement shifts. The constraint and enforcement shifts were the things that we talked about earlier. When the rules change, those change. Stay evidence first. Track what changed and where and who was impacted. Those are policy shifts that can change enforcements. The capstone. Build your domain map. Domains, education, business, commerce, family, community, wealth, health, government, environment, economy, employment, travel, and policy. For each domain, fill a classification category and label, the constraint that exists, the rules plus the resources, the roles and the resources that are controlling that level, the enforcement, how discretion plus pressure points contribute, the narrative, how certain things are framed in a stigma, Then pick one lawful intervention plus one documentation step. This is like a practice you're going to be doing. Next 5 steps. All right. Let's see what I want to put out of here. This is the second part. This part is I gotta be somewhere in a minute, so I gotta get up out of here. Lawful action, de-escalation, documentation, nervous system regulation. The principles that are non-negotiables. Okay, cool. Operate inside lawful protections, non-violence, and de-escalation. Things need to be taught. No threats, no harassment, or intimidation of others. State evidence first, facts before conclusions, and document intent and process all the time. Regulate first, interpret second. This is how the police are set to do things. So this is a 2-minute reset. You're going to put your feet on the floor, feel support, name 3 objects that you can see in your environment. Slow exhale 4 in, out 6, 5 times. Take a sip of water, touch something cool. And we're going to get back to this. Just a quick pause. So, here are some red flags to pause on. If we're having racing thoughts and urgency, if your chest tightens, if you feel like I must decide what I think or I feel right now, and if you feel like it may cause you some sleep disturbance, take a break, come back, and finish listening to the lecture later. Group roles that reduce harm. Simple, lawful roles. Facilitator keeps the agenda plus the tone. The scribe, secretary, keeps the minutes and decisions. The de-escalator, the conflict resoluter. The wellness lead. They make sure people get breaks, waters, check-ins, and then your media liaison, consistent factual messaging. This is what I would have if I was doing this live. All right. So documentation, lawful clarity, do. What you want to do is keep timelines, save posters, policies, and notices. Log exact quotes, labels used. Store minutes and decisions. Don't dox people or share private information. Don't post unverified claims as facts. If they're not facts, say speculative. Say believe. But don't put them as facts. Encourage legal behavior. It says illegal behavior, but it should have says legal behavior. Don't encourage illegal behavior, and don't use threats or intimidation. So don't encourage illegal behavior at any time, and don't use threats or intimidation at any time. Digital safety basics, non-invasive. Good hygiene. Use strong passwords plus password manager. Turn on multi-factor authentications. Keep devices updated. Be careful with group links and unknown files. Separate personal and public-facing accounts if needed. You are not the entity. So separate yourself from the group, from the entity, from the organization. Separate yourself. Make sure that that's documented. Don't include yourself. That's basic safety. Legal basics, general United States anchors. High-level protections. Speech, peaceful assembly, and petitions are protected. Limits do exist. Employment discrimination protections exist. Title 8. Public accommodations protections exist. Title 2. Housing discriminations protections exist. Fair Housing Act. It's where you can find these documents, where you can use these documents to know your rights and protections. If things escalate, stay safe, stay factual, simple plan, pause and regroup, prioritize physical safety, record facts, time, place, quotes, name if safe. Even then, sometimes without a witness in the judicial system, they'll discredit your recorded facts. I promise you they will. I'm a witness. If you have a judge that's willing to do things that is unscrupulous, if the judge is willing to do unscrupulous things, that won't even matter. So that's why sometimes you need multiple avenues, and you also need witnesses. And because the judges in the system is less likely to do unscrupulous behaviors if they know it's somebody outside of you watching. Don't ever go to court by yourself, even if it's a traffic ticket. Avoid speculation. Verify before broadcasting. Like I verified everything in this lecture before I did this lecture. Rest and rotate roles to prevent burnout. Don't have just one person in one role. Everybody should know all the roles in case somebody disappears for whatever reason. Somebody's still going to need to know how to operate that person's role. So everybody should operate every role, and there should be a rotation in operating those roles. So there's no burnout for one, and so for two, it clearly disconnects you as personally in charge of an organization. They can't attach you specifically to this organization, to this group. No leader, no defined roles. Safety is strategy. Law, clarity plus evidence, first practice plus sustainable capacity. And that's the end. So I hope that this is going to be very helpful to those who encounter it. Please like, comment, share what I could have done better, what you would like me to address if I was to ever do a revision or a future video on this. Also share things that you would like me to also speak on. Make sure you check out my school coming up soon, where this will be a class that you can learn. And there will be many other classes as well. Check me out on all my social media. Look for Hustle God. And when you look for Hustle God, look for me. This has been the end of this presentation. See you later.